Today I want to talk about something that's really been on my mind for years, and that's the iPad, and particularly today from WWDC, the iPad OS that has been released about three weeks ago. The iPad, to me, let me just say this real quick before we get started, is the technology that we need for today. Not talking about the future. It's already here. It's been here for a number of years. And a lot of people in the tech community have been complaining about it because it has so much limitations.
Okay. Yeah. I'm thinking maybe.
So when you look at the iPad for what it's worth, it's a all-screen device, no buttons, as you guys know, particularly the new model, the iPad Pro 2018 edition. And pretty much it's a wireless connecting device. It connects to Wi-Fi. You don't plug an Ethernet cable into it. If you do plug hard drives into it, it's just to dump pictures in so you can go ahead and edit. But I think the biggest thing here is the long battery life, the amazing screen, and now the amazing processor. So for a lot of people, they wanted it to have a mouse, they wanted it to have connectors like USB, USB-C. But I started thinking about this before we get into the iPad OS. Let's think about this for a second. If the 30-pin iPad that first came out when Steve Jobs introduced it some years back, if that device had USB connectivity, the most you could transfer are some JPEGs, some Word documents, some text files, because everything else would be slow. Even the latest iPhone 10, is not taking advantage of USB 3.0. It's not taking advantage of Thunderbolt, unless you get a cable that goes from Lightning to Thunderbolt. And so now that the iPad has USB-C, it makes sense to unlock USB capabilities to this device, because now we can take advantage of the speeds that are there. So for example, I'm gonna go in my little tech pouch here. I'm gonna get out a hard drive. So this is one of the drives I use in the field. I wanna make this really practical for you guys. So this has a USB-C connector. The cable is tiny. I think this is ideal for an iPad device. I don't believe we should be using 6-foot cables unless we can wrap them neatly behind the iPad, or keep them from dropping or making us trip, or making the iPad fall off of a table because of the weight and because of something getting caught in the cable. A short cable that goes into the back of the hard drive, which has USB-C. You have, let's say you have 50 of your last projects on this one. This is the 1 terabyte edition. On this 1 terabyte drive, you plug it into your iPad, you access those files, you go to work. You unplug the drive, you throw it in your bag. That's huge, especially now that the iPad has a fast USB connector. And I feel like Apple, the long run, or the end game for the iPad is a, dare I say it, 5G network, where you can do everything you would do from your computer on your lap without being connected to anything. See, just like Netflix, maybe people wanted Netflix to continue selling DVDs, but they knew our end goal was not to be DVD flicks or to be Blu-ray flicks, but to be internet flicks. And so many times companies, I'm not making any excuses for Apple, I agree there should have been some way to connect other devices to the iPad. But many times companies have a longer goal in mind, and many of the consumers, all they see is the current needs of the marketplace. It's like this famous Wayne Gretzky quote that says, "I don't go where the puck has been, I go to where the puck is going to be." So in other words, rather than making a, I guess, OLED iPad or OLED screen or whatever technology is currently existing, many times companies such as Apple will make something called micro LED, which is supposed to be the next iteration of screens. They'll step ahead because they know something has already become mainstream. They understand its limitations, they understand its disadvantages, and so they skip past it. Now, going into iPad OS. iPad OS unlocks the ability for you to plug in a hard drive, which I just talked about. It unlocks the ability for you to store files to that hard drive. So you're not just reading from your drive. You can do all of your work, all of your editing, all of your project management, and then push it to an external storage and leave your 64 gig iPad free, or your 256 or your 512, just for maybe carrying around projects, maybe sharing some of your artwork, maybe sharing some of your beats, whatever the case might be, and keeping that drive predominantly free. It also creates a lot of multitasking functionality. Now again, I've been using the iPad for a number of weeks, and what I would say is this. I find I actually move more efficiently on the iPad because I'm less inclined to go to another application, because I'm typically working with one application at a time. Even if I do 2 screens simultaneously, the applications I'm using, such as Darkroom, the applications I'm using, such as Affinity Photo, those apps don't run in a well, actually Darkroom can, but they don't allow me to run 2 apps at the same time. I have to focus on what I'm doing, get it done, and then move on to something else. And I like that approach. However, if I have the need, like say I'm sending 600 pictures to a client, I don't have to whip out my computer now, plug in the hard drive, go to the folder, open Dropbox, use my mouse, drag and drop. I can actually open Dropbox on the iPad, open Darkroom or whatever program I'm using to edit, select those pictures, which can take a bit of a process of doing a batch selection, and then drag that over to Lightroom, just put that into a folder. And now the client has access to those files. Just me sharing that link with them. And so these updates to iPad OS are huge, but not simply because it's something new that we can play with, but it actually frees you from your desk. You're not limited to doing work only at your house or only in a specific location. If I go out on a weekend relaxation and maybe there's an emergency, someone needs a file, or I need to export something, or I myself have shot something and I want to share it with some people right away, I don't have to wish I had my computer. I may have my iPad with me, I can whip it out, get the work done, go back to what I was doing. Or if I'm away from my studio, I'm on the road, I'm doing production work, and I have a lot of equipment with me, and I want to do some quick changes, I don't have to sit at the desk, whip out the laptop, plug it in. I can actually do a lot of the work from my hands, just standing up, walking around with the iPad, either with the pencil or just with my fingers. And that's freedom. And one of the things I will say is this. I heard this from Henny the Business. This is a guy here on YouTube. He was saying that we have to welcome change. Now, I'm not saying that we should be changing things every 6 months or every 2 days. I'm not giving you guys a pattern. I really believe we need to be patient too, because I feel like this iPad purchase was at the right time, simply because of iPad OS, and simply because now we're at the place where we have little drives like these. If this came out 2 years ago, we didn't have these SSD drives that were waterproof and dustproof, so they say, like they have now with G Technology and also with the Samsung X5. So the timing is everything, but at the same time we have to be willing to change. And what I'm saying change is, here's what I mean. I've gotten so used to editing my pictures in Adobe Lightroom that by default, my most instinctive move will be to install Lightroom on my iPad, install Lightroom on my phone, subscribe to their service, and keep it in that ecosystem. But I said no. I started learning Capture One. I love Capture One. It's an amazing program. I got used to that too. But now the iPad is here. It doesn't yet have Capture One or anything exactly like it, but I'm using Darkroom. And I'm using Affinity Photo, and I'm learning now more how to retouch. It's an amazing, it's just amazing when you're learning something new, how your mind expands, how you feel about the whole thing. And I will just say, guys, be willing to adopt. So I hope this video was helpful. If it was helpful, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. And remember to like and subscribe and turn on that notification bell so you can know when I do videos like this. This is Carlin here. Until next time, peace.